All right, so let's get started here. So, welcome to the Financial Advisory Webinar Series, hosted by myself, Tanya Hiltz, founder of Cloud Bookkeeping Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. A little bit about me. I will not go into all of that because you can certainly read through that if you'd like. Just most recently, we were Intuit's Global Firm of the Future for 2018, and our Bookkeepers Bootcamp actually recently qualified in 2018 for CEC credits. So it's great to know that our professional organization stands by the program as super educational. And of course, there's just a few others. As I say, you can read through those in your time. So this webinar has been submitted for CE credits through the IPBC. I'm not expecting any issues, but of course it has not officially been approved yet. There will be 2 polls that must be answered in order to qualify for the credits. A recording of the webinar will be emailed within 2 days to those whether you're in attendance for the full thing or not. And if approved for the CE credit, certificates will usually emailed within about 2 weeks. If the approval does take longer, that's the only time that would delay that, and that'll be emailed out separately. So here's our schedule, and today we've got our kickoff with Rhondalynn Korolak. Rhondalynn is the founder of Businest and the author of Financial Foreplay, and most recently, Pricing Value is her most recent book as well. So yeah, I guess that's it. So if you just want to take it away, Rhonda, that'd be great. Hit the record buttons. I'm recording now. All right, perfect. Okay, so let me just pop up the first poll, and we'll start with the first poll. Perfect, and then we've got people commenting that yes, they can see the screen, which is great.
Awesome.
All right,
we'll start there.
So here we go. So here's the first poll. So it's just, what is the number one takeaway that you hope to get from the financial advisory series? So it's, which app suits your needs best or is easiest to use? A turnkey solution where you can easily create and sell management products or reports, management reports. A good overview of all the apps so that you can make your choice from there. How to grow your practice by creating incremental revenue. Just dipping your toe into the water. You're not sure yet if you're ready to offer advice on cash flow, and how you can become better at solving the problems that are troubling your clients. Oh, looks like both questions popped up at the same time.
It doesn't matter. We can do them both if that's cool too. I'm easy because I'm just trying to get a read from the audience. So my questions are probably a bit more different.
Absolutely. So then I'll just come up with another poll question to pop in near the end.
Yeah.
Maybe just before we're ready for the FAQ, so that way I can see that. So then this questions 2 are you currently providing management or cash flow reports to your clients? So yes, you've created some reports that you create manually, for example, in Excel. Yes, you create some reports, but you're often unsure if the client sees the value because they don't take action. Yes, you create reports for every single client and can measure the exact value they create every month by receiving them. That would be difficult to do personally, but no, I provide reports on an ad hoc basis when specifically asked. No, because I have no idea what could be of value or how to monetize it. And no, I'm working on getting the confidence to move into this. So we have only 12 out of the, okay, we're moving up there. So people are still taking the time to read. There's no right or wrong answer.
This is just for me to kind of have a feel for where the audience is at as I'm talking.
Yep. So we've got 15 out of 21 so far. So we'll give about 10 more seconds, 15 more seconds for everybody to answer. And remember, you need to answer both the polls now and the one I'm going to pop up near the end to be able to get the CEC credits.
Yeah, and the end one will be easy. I think it'll fall out when, as long as you guys are paying attention, you should be able to get it.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so I'll stop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so end poll, and I'll just show the results.
And I'm just going to copy down a few numbers here. So 6, 11, 28, 28, 0. Cool. I'm just going to scroll down just 1 second. I'm just writing all the numbers down. Cool. So it looks like, if I can kind of get a vibe of this, it looks like that as it pertains to question one, a lot of people are, having questions around just getting some kind of a solution, or at least an overview. That's where the kind of the bulk of you guys are falling. So nobody's dipping their toe in the water, which is good. And with respect to question two, it looks like the bulk of people are either saying no, they're just doing them on an ad hoc basis, or yes, but the clients are unsure of the value. So I'm really, really glad, because that is actually what I'm going to talk about today. So I guessed what my audience was going to be like very well, but I always like to check just before I start, because I can easily tailor the content to make sure that I'm speaking, from the perspective of where you guys are. So you can probably guess, I've titled this whole thing, are you trying to sell fruit when what your clients really crave is chocolate? And that's going to explain a lot of the theme of where I'm going with this. Now, let's get stuck into it right away. There was actually quite a few recent studies, but there was one in particular here in Australia that quantified the incremental revenue opportunity for advisory as a general piece for this SME type of market at around $1 million per annum for every 300 clients. So if you break it down and you do the math, essentially what that is saying is that the incremental revenue opportunity for you as a practitioner is around $3,333 a year per client. So in my humble opinion, that is a very conservative amount. I think probably the number that we're looking closer to for the bookkeeping market is around $6,000 to $12,000 per client per annum. So is that a big number? Well, depending on how many clients that you currently have right now as a bookkeeper, it's potentially quite a huge number, isn't it? And fairly motivating, right? Because if you think about it, if you've got 10 clients, and the incremental opportunity of moving beyond compliance towards advisory, of which cash flow is just one component, you're probably looking at $60,000 to $120,000. So that's a huge, huge number. But here's the challenge, right? So how are you going to shift the focus of your practice from what you're currently doing, which is very specific, to these strategic or advisory type services, of which, cash flow is just one component? The shift, while it makes total sense kind of in theory, it also means that you have to actually learn a whole new way to communicate with, work with, market to, and price your clients. And I want you to write those 4 things down, because I'm going to be coming back to them over and over, right? Because the way that you're currently communicating and working and marketing to and pricing your clients may not be the same way or the right way to do it in this new world. And therein lies the real dilemma, right? Because it's not just as easy as watching the next 10 or however many weeks of webinars Tanya's got planned for you, picking an app and just bolting it on to what you already do, right? That strategy is not really going to work. Cash flow is this, it's a fantastic place to start. It's my favorite area of specialization, but cash flow and working capital deficiencies are the biggest pain point of small businesses. But here's my point. Solving that problem now may not be as easy or as straightforward or tied to technology as you actually think it is. Now, hear me out on this, okay? I'm going to get to the next slide. Let's take a look at the size of this problem, right? This is the cash flow problem. And I've updated the numbers for Canada. So I'm hoping that most of the people on the call today are from Canada. I normally present this, very country specific. But of the roughly 1.17 million small businesses in Canada, 86% pretty much have less than 20 employees. And if you break that down even further, about 74% have less than 9 employees, right? These business owners are technicians, right? Many of them don't have any financial training whatsoever. So that's an issue. Let's take a look at them a little bit further. What keeps these people up at night, right? Well, it's cash flow. You may be surprised, and these are, credible numbers from Canada, that the average SME, almost 71% of your clients right now are solely relying on savings, trade credit, and credit cards to run their business. Yep, you read that properly. Only 28% of your clients seek external funding, and quite a few of them are not successful in getting it. So if you start adding up all the numbers on the screen right now, what you're going to find out is that roughly 80.4%, so almost 81% of your clients have severe working capital and or cash flow pain, right? And those two things are not the same. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later on, but those two things are not the same, right? They're related to each other, but slightly different. So what's happening is most of the people that you're dealing with are trying to manage their cash flow and working capital by high interest means, or by not capitalizing their companies properly. So with training in the right skills, right, you can cure this problem. Now hold on a second. Some of you guys are probably thinking, Rhondalynn, I'm a bookkeeper, or maybe you've even trained as an accountant and you're doing bookkeeping as what you have chosen to do for whatever reason, or maybe you're running a combined practice. Of course I can help people with cash flow pain. Well, in theory, that might be true, but you might be forgetting one simple thing. Now, this is going to, probably not shock any of you, but it's really, really relevant. In the last 12 months, I have read 4 or 5 different studies that prove that financial mismanagement is the #1 killer of business, of small business in particular, and about 96% of your customers right now are trying to run their business on a simple P&L and an age debtor report. Your clients can't answer basic questions about the difference between profit, cash in the bank, cash flow, working capital, and cash position estimate. They get that stuff all mixed up, right? Most of your customers also assume that if they just throw more money at advertising or they buy more customers, that somehow it's going to magically fix their cash flow issue, which is totally incorrect. Everybody knows, as financial experts, we know that it doesn't work like that. This research squarely puts into focus the seriousness of your client's financial literacy problem, right? And this is huge. The truth is, I estimate, just having done this for more than a decade now, just working with small business and doing these sort of things, that at least 95% of your customers, your small business clients, they are financially illiterate. They cannot read their financial statements. So creating beautiful graphs and dashboards and cash flow forecasts, or even KPIs, right, may not actually be as helpful as you think they are. I want to talk to you about something. I am an expert in neuroscience and how the brain works, and bringing this knowledge back into our industry and applying it to what we do as accountants and bookkeepers. What we know from the science of the brain is that the parts of your client's brain, so the client has, obviously we all have many different parts of the brain and they're all interconnected and working together at all times, but the parts that are primarily associated with decision making, those parts struggle to actually understand numbers and words, right? These structures in the brain are largely automatic. So they're strongly influenced by things like pictures, video, storytelling, really strong contrast and emotion. Now, this is a huge challenge for us as a profession, because most of us have never actually been taught how to explain really complicated financial concepts to our layperson clients in the language that they can understand, right? And before you think that, all of this, they can easily be solved with charts and graphs, right? I want you to think again, because the research is pretty clear that the visuals you present to your clients need to be so simple that essentially a 6-year-old can understand them, which immediately disqualifies most of the dashboards and charts that are on the market right now. Now, what I'm saying is probably a bit shocking and controversial, but just bear with me, right? Your clients, they desperately need answers and strategies to fix their cash flow problems, all the stuff that's keeping them awake at night. But you need to find better, more impactful technologies and training, teaching, education to deliver these insights in a way that your clients can actually grasp, digest, and implement this stuff. So that's pretty much why I say you can't sell fruit when what your client actually craves is chocolate. You know, dashboards, KPIs, forecasts, spreadsheets, all that stuff is just like fruit. It's nutritious, it's healthy for you, it's fantastic, right? It makes total sense for somebody like you and I who is highly skilled in financials. But your client just wants the answers, doesn't him or her, right? Don't they? They don't want to learn accounting. They are totally afraid of their numbers, or they're confused by the difference between profit and cash flow and all that sort of stuff. They just want you to do what? What do they want you to do? Well, basically, they want you to put the chocolate in their mouth, don't they? You know, you're probably, I love this picture. Every time I see it, it makes me chuckle, right? Because this is the truth of the matter. This is exactly what it's like, right? Your clients just want you to solve their problems. They don't want to have to really work hard or learn a whole bunch of accounting if they can help it, right? So they're trying to avoid that. They just want you to put the answers in their mouth. So remember a few minutes ago that I said this transition or this shift to advising your clients with cash flow isn't easy, right? The proposed shift, it makes a lot of sense, but it also means that you, the practitioner, have to learn a whole new way to communicate with, work with, market to, and price your clients, right? Here's the thing. You've got to fix cash flow, right? But your client, they're stressed. Stressed people do not make good financial decisions. So it's about, how are you going to deal with that? What about this whole concept of, clients are making decisions on what they see and feel, right? The brain is an automatic structure. So it's going to be making immediate decisions within milliseconds about things that it sees and feels, not necessarily what is rational or logical, right? So that's a huge big thing because cash flow is a rational, logical thing. It isn't a feeling. And we've got to figure out how do we repackage stuff so that our clients can get it. The other aspect of this is a lot of your clients right now are price conscious, right? Because your services are not differentiated. If you just go out and start using a dashboard or a forecast from some of the, one of the apps that's in the ecosystem, well, basically your competitor can do the same bloody thing. So it's still undifferentiated, which means you're going to struggle to get a premium price for doing this stuff, which, to be fair, why are you going to do it if it's something that you can't price based on the value? And the second thing is that you are getting paid right now to be a financial expert. You may not yet have enough leverage on your clients to inspire them to take action, to fix the problems, and create this impact across all aspects of their business. I have a little bit of a definition, and it's you are still doing the work in the engagement with your client, then you're not doing advisory. Advisory to me is about how do we get leverage on our clients and how do we inspire them to take action, right? So there's a lot of considerations that we have to think about when moving into this thing. Now, I'm going to do something really, really bad, and I'm going to throw another wrinkle into this mix. I want you to think about this. I'm sure that you've probably come across or seen this slide or something similar to this before. The top bits of this iceberg that you see is not the most, significant part, right? If the Titanic hit this iceberg right now, it wouldn't go down because it hit the top of the iceberg. It would go down because of all that stuff lying below the waterline, right? If your clients are constantly struggling with cash-related issues, well, guess what? It is highly likely that they also have chronic poverty mindset. My favorite language for this is stinking thinking, right? Now, unless you're prepared to work with them to address the problems from the inside out, right? Dealing with not only their financial literacy issues, but also the emotional and mindset elements that are, keeping these persons poor. Guess what? You're not going to have a successful advisory business in cash flow if you don't do that. We've got to help our clients move beyond these roadblocks as well by first underlying or fixing the underlying reasons and then working with our clients to address them at the source. So cash flow, is not as simple as, probably you came into this whole thing thinking it was going to be. So here's the thing. Is finding the right app the place to start? Right? Maybe not. There's a whole lot of other aspects, right? Is finding an app going to guarantee that that you're able to price your solution correctly for each client based on its value? Probably not, right? Is it, finding the right app, is it going to guarantee that you're communicating in plain language to your clients so that a 6-year-old could understand it? Maybe not. Is it going to help you construct stories so that the automated structures of their brain can grasp it and make decisions based on it? Maybe not, right? If the app you choose, as I said before, is the same as your competitors, is it going to make them less price conscious? Probably not, right? Because they can't tell the difference between you and the other person. Therefore, they're not going to pay you a premium price, right? Is having an app going to make it easier for you to find the right customers and have them say yes to working with you? Probably not. The app you choose to do the diagnostic part, it's just a diagnostic tool. That's it. It's no different than any other software program that you use right now in your practice. It does not cure the cash flow pain. You do, right? But to cure the pain, you've got to learn a whole lot more stuff, like how are you going to comprehend and measure the value of this problem upfront to them and then price the solution accordingly? How are you going to help them deal with their financial literacy situation? How are you going to help them move beyond their stinking thinking? How about you moving beyond your own fear about even, being able to provide advice and charging based on the value that you bring to the table? A few of you, I think 11% of you said that you had some fear and uncertainty whether, you could do this, right? How do you distinguish between the cash flow and the working capital element? Because guess what, folks? The cure is vastly different for both of those things. And I see practitioners, even chartered accountants, I've presented on this topic a few times and had chartered accountants make mistakes in differentiating between cash flow and working capital and what the cure was. And the two of them are different. So this is a really, interesting part. Now, guess what? That's just my intro. This is actually what we're going to cover in the session, right? This is the preface up until now of setting the scene for where we're going with this. Now, if at a later date, you guys want me to come back and cover some more stuff, I will. But all I want to cover in this, because I want to set the scenes, is just 4 simple things, right? I want to teach you guys how to talk to your clients about cash flow, okay? I want to show you why you should never, ever sell dashboards and reports. I want you to know why you shouldn't focus too much on forecasting. And then I just want to give you some tangible solutions that you can use to actually cure the cash flow pain, right? Because people will pay pennies for your dashboards and forecasts, but they will pay any price for the solution to their cash flow pain. So that's a distinction, right? So today, I just want to cover what everybody else in the next 10 weeks is not going to cover. And the reason that I want to cover this stuff is because these are the 4 main points that are going to distinguish you from like 99% of all the other bookkeepers out there, right? If you execute these 4 points masterfully, then I guarantee you're going to build a really strong, solid foundation from which you can actually help your clients to fix the cash flow, cure it, or their working capital pain, right? If you don't do these things and you just try to sell reports, it's not going to work, because 2 things. Your client's not going to get value, right? They're not going to take action. They're not going to see an impact, so they're not going to get value. And they're not going to pay you a premium price. So it doesn't really make sense not to, do what I'm about to say. So let's talk a little bit about the first thing I said I was going to teach you is how to talk to your clients about cash flow. Well, this is not how to talk to your clients about cash flow. This is the wrong way. Please, please, please do not talk to your clients about sources and uses of funds. operating, investing, financing, free cash flow versus net cash flow, all of that stuff. That's far too complex. It's going to confuse your client. If you see that in any packages, I want you to steer clear of that stuff. While it may make sense to you, it's going to be absolutely horrific to try to explain this stuff to your client. I want to show you a little bit of an easier way. So I created this thing called MIMO. It's basically money in and money out, right? So all your client really needs to know is how much money went into their business and how much went out. And when I say out, what I actually mean is money or cash that left the business and money that got trapped. And I want you to write that down. Now, why would I be singling out money that got trapped? Well, when money comes in, it's in the business. And when money goes out, guess what? It's out. You cannot manage something that is gone. But you can manage something that is trapped because it means that you can go with your client and help them unlock it and put it in their bank account, right? So you don't need to teach your client accounting in order to accomplish money in and money out. In fact, that would be a waste of your time, right? It doesn't make any sense. And it's going to bore them to death, or it's going to totally confuse them. So I created this formula. It's kind of like a surefire system and a software to do this really, really quickly. It started with Financial Foreplay and it has morphed into Businest, which is the software that, I teach and I use. And with your permission, I just want to share with you a couple of the key insights and learnings about that. And later I'll give you a very brief demo. It's not going to be very long because I'm more concerned about how you guys are thinking about cash flow and talking about it than how you're measuring it. So the most important thing that I want you to remember when we're going through all of this is that cash flow is a certainty. And I want you to write that down. Cash flow is a certainty, right? Because when you do a cash flow calculation, it will show you exactly the money that's come in and exactly the money that went out, and it will show you where the cash is trapped, right? It does not make sense to waste a whole lot of time on forecasting. Because whenever you do a cash flow forecast, it is not a certainty, right? It's just a guess about where you think things are going to be at some point in the future, but that may or may not happen. And if you rely solely on selling forecasts and doing forecasts and focusing on forecasts, guess what? You're going to be wasting a whole lot of time on stuff, by and large, and you're going to miss some of the stuff that's really critical because you will not have enough time to help your clients unlock the cash and put it in their bank account. When I first started about 10 years ago, when I wrote Financial Foreplay, so this is going back a while, I had my very first coaching clients. I was coaching small businesses at the time. I wasn't working with accountants and bookkeepers direct. I was coaching small businesses. And I showed up at my first coaching meeting with this woman. And the day that I showed up, I had prepared all of these cash flow dashboards because remember, this is before cloud accounting, right? So I'd done a lot of the stuff in Excel and manually. And I showed up and I was really excited to work with her on cash flow. And she proceeds to tell me in her first sentence that she's not sure if she can keep me as a coach because she just lost her biggest client worth 30% of her revenue. And that was the beginning of coaching for me, is to find out that I just showed up and now I might lose my client because she was in a panic. And all of the work that I did preparing all those cash flow forecasts and all that crap went 100% out the window, and it was completely useless to me because things had changed in her business. And it was about figuring out, how she was going to survive, not how she was going to grow or do all of this other stuff. So I just want you to remember that the most important thing is cash flow, not cash forecasting, because cash flow is a certainty. So hopefully that makes sense. And I'll take questions about that later in case anyone's in doubt about any of that stuff. So this is how I teach cash flow. So for those of you who have read my book, Financial Foreplay, this is probably going to seem a little bit familiar to you. I also took this particular picture that you're seeing out of 6.3 in pricing value. So I ended up using it for one of my client stories and pricing value as well. So this is how I teach cash flow, right? So there's no point of going out to your client and saying, well, cash flow is first you start with net profit, and then you're going to plus and minus non-cash adjustments, and then we're going to look at your operating activities. That's crazy talk, right? So this is how I explain it. Everybody and their dog knows what a bathtub is, right? So I basically go out and I say, okay, I'm going to teach you how cash flow works so that you can run your business more effectively. Now, remember I said that it was all about money in and money out. Well, let's just take a look at isolation of what money in is. So the first thing that happens is your profit comes into the picture. So $120,000 of money in, and I'm using that in, I got little quotation marks up right now, comes into your business or your bathtub, $120,000. Now, most of you are thinking, geez, I've got $120,000 to spend. No, that is not correct. You do not. It's just profit. It's like a bag of buttons. You can't take it to the bank. You can't, deposit it. It's just an accounting term that explains that you've got more revenue left over than you do expenses that you have to pay out. But let's go a little bit deeper. Let's say that this really is a bathtub and 120,000 went in. Guess what? You dip your toe into the bathtub and you discover that, ooh, it's a little bit colder than you'd like. So what you do is you go away and you boil a kettle in your kitchen. And because you've run out of hot water or whatever have you, so you decide that you're going to bring some hot water and you're going to throw it into the bath. That is also money in. Now, what might that money be? Well, it could be a lot of things, right? It could be like you got rid of dead stock and converted it to cash. It could be that you stopped letting people get away without paying you on time, and so you collected some of your debtors. All that stuff is also money that comes into your bank account. Now, if all things were fantastic, guess what? We'd expect the cash flow, the amount of water that's left in your bathtub, to be about $170,000, wouldn't we? Right? 120 came in, 50 came in. We should see $170,000 of cash flow in your bathtub. But we don't, do we? We see $10,000. And this is pretty much, the typical thing that I see. There was one of the software providers, I won't tell you which one it was, did a study, and these numbers actually rang true. The average net profit for all small businesses across this particular software provider was around $120,000, and guess what? Their cash flow was actually less than $10,000. I guessed it within $2,000 or $3,000 when they were, asking me about it, just based on gut feel from doing this for so many years. It was actually closer to like $5,000. But anyways, that's an aside, right? Basically, what's happened is the business owner thinks that they've made all this money, they got to pay tax on 120, but lo and behold, they only have $10,000 left in their bathtub. Why is that? Well, it's because some, bright spark has not put the plug in the bottom of the bathtub, right? And all this water has drained out onto the floor. And in fact, 160,000 of it has drained down the floor. Now, here's the really interesting part, right? Is because just because it's money out, the 160 doesn't mean it's gone, right? Because money out contains a couple of things. It contains money that actually left the business, but it also contains money that is trapped in the business, right? And so that's the really interesting part, is we've got to figure out, how do we then figure out how much money is trapped in the business, and we're going to go after it. So I use examples like this to teach cash flow rather than trying to get people to understand the mathematics behind how you're creating the cash flow. So hopefully, I'm hoping that this little analogy will be one that you can just implement and use in your own practice whenever you're talking with people. I use all kinds of stories. Basically, all my books are full of client stories, but also analogies. I use, seesaws and bathtubs and different things like that, because basically a 6-year-old could get this. I think that I have broken cash flow down in Financial Foreplay to the point where I believe a 6-year-old could get it. And that's how I know it works, is because they're, without dumbing it down to the point that you're being condescending to your client, you just want to teach them the basics so that they can feel confident and master it and actually take action. So let's take a look at a second example of how we might do this, or how we might use storytelling to teach cash flow. In Financial Foreplay, almost every chapter has at least one or two client stories where I talk about how I helped people to find cash that was trapped and unlock it. But I also created these two fictional characters, right? Their names are Penny and Ernest. Now you can probably guess from the names what's going down here. So Penny is the spender in the relationship. So if all of you women out there, I'm sure you totally can relate to this. And Ernest is the earner. So what happens is Penny and Ernest are, just like any couple, they are constantly chasing each other. Sometimes Penny's in the lead, sometimes Ernest is in the lead. But here's the thing. Penny and Ernest run, but they only get to run when money actually leaves or comes into the bank account. So Penny can only run when you spend money. She doesn't get to run if you buy something and then agree to pay for it in the future. And the same is true of Ernest, right? Ernest can only run when you collect money and put it in your bank account. If you give your clients 60 days to pay, well, Ernest does not get to run until you actually collect that money. So I teach cash flow in terms of also these two characters chasing each other. So if I was to give you a set of financial statements for one of your clients, or you were to go out and present it, this is how you would explain it. So Penny and Ernest run and chase each other every month or every period. So we're always looking at cash flow over a period of time, right? From the beginning of the year until now, or from last month until this month. But here's the thing, your financial statements, right, a P&L, it contains a whole bunch of stuff that has yet to happen and may never happen. And that's where you kind of get into trouble here, is that your financial statements include all of the money that was collected and will be collected in the future, even though there's no certainty about when that's going to happen, and all of the money that was spent and will be spent in the future, even though, again, you have no idea when exactly that's going to happen. So the financial statements that most clients get from their cloud accounting packages in many ways are like a running total of everything that's ever happened in the business during the period of time, and a whole lot of stuff that has yet to happen. So that's completely useless. You can't make decisions off of any of that stuff, because basically you're going to be left with way too much information, and a lot of it is not even relevant to the period. So cash flow is very, very different than what you see in your financials. So your financials include stuff that's happened and stuff that has yet to happen. All we want to do when we want to get back to cash flow with our clients is we just want to simplify it. We just want to get back to how much money was spent. How far did Penny run in this business? And how much money was collected? How far did Ernest run? Now, if Penny ran $1,000 and Ernest ran $500, guess what? There would be a cash gap between them, right? That we'd be out $500 because Penny ran $500 further than Ernest. That's it. It's as simple as this. We don't have to teach our clients the ins and outs of bloody cash flow in order to get these really complicated concepts, which probably, most of us that are here on the call today have, tens of thousands of hours to master this stuff and know how to do it properly. We don't have to recreate that. What we have to do is just get better at telling stories, using bathtubs, using Penny and Ernest, just simple visuals to teach people that, hey, you know what? Penny just ran way further than Ernest this month, and that's why you don't have any cash. It doesn't matter what your profit is. What matters is how far Penny and Ernest have ran. So I'm hoping that these simple stories are kind of like a little bit of set the stage for you. Now, what I want to do is just very, very quickly do a quick demo. So I'm going to shut this down and pick up. Hopefully I've got, let's see if I can get to here. Now you guys are, let's see, quickly sign in. Now, can you guys still see my screen? Can you let me know, Tanya?
Yes, we still can. We can see your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to resume my share because I want to share a different screen. I want to share this one. Okay. So this is how we do cash flow at Business, right? Do you remember I told you guys about penny and earnest? Well, the very first thing that I do when I'm working with clients is I want to educate them, right? I don't want to jump right into cash flow because they're not going to get it. So what I did is I set up a simple selection of videos. When new clients join Business and we put their numbers on the system, basically the very first thing that we do is we basically just talk to them about what is cash flow. What's the difference between profit and cash flow? Why is it important? How do you measure it? How do you boost it? Each of these videos is only about 2 minutes long, but I guarantee that after watching 10 minutes of videos and hearing these stories and understanding the concepts that I created in Financial Foreplay, that your client is going to be better educated, which means they're going to be a hell of a lot easier for you to work with. The biggest hurdle that you have overcoming is just bridging the gap between what your clients understand and what they need to understand in order to run their business correctly. So the very first thing I do is educate. I story tell. I teach them what's going on. Once they have a general understanding, then and only then will I move down to where I might say, okay, let's take a look here, right? This is what you started out in the bank with, 89,000, and the green represents all the money that came in, and the red represents everything that went out, and then this is your ending bank balance. You know, anyone with basic education can really visually understand what's going on with this cash flow. Now, I always keep a running total of what's going on. So you as the practitioner might want to know, well, what is in that money in? Like, what were the adjustments? How did we come to the cash flow calculation? You can always click on the links and do a drop down and figure out, you know, what happened? How did you get to the $140,000 in June or 172 in July? But I typically don't discuss it with my clients because it's more information than they need to make better decisions in their business. I jump right down to the next bit. So I bypassed all of the forecasting, all of the what if analysis, and what I'm doing now is looking for where's the cash trapped. So Business takes a look at all of the different KPIs and combinations and permutations of what's happening with the different KPIs in the system. And what it's trying to do mathematically is try to determine if you only worked on one or two things this month with your client, what should those one or two things be, right? It's like a set of training wheels for moving into advisory and doing cash flow. So this particular client is a restaurant. So it will explain why they don't have any receivables, because obviously people pay when they eat. But basically what the system is saying is that they've decreased payables in the period by about $5,845, right? 92 cents. So whenever you pay payables, it takes cash to do that. So it's talking about that they've depleted some cash flow, and it's going to give them some, preliminary instructions about what they might want to do to fix that. Because when I take a look at this company, the thing that really sticks out is that it currently takes them on average about 12 days to pay their suppliers. Now I want you to think about that. Most people pay their suppliers in up to 30 days. Oftentimes people have, up to 30-day terms, and particularly this client does, but they're choosing to pay people early. When you choose to pay people money too early, too soon, guess what? It depletes your cash flow. So again, the system is basically telling this particular client, these are some things that you might want to think about, right? Are you being offered a discount to pay early? Because if not, you might want to check your bank account and your cash flow first before you choose to pay people early. How can you go about renegotiating terms with your suppliers, with your creditors, to increase the number of days that you have to pay them? Because oftentimes, and this is really an important tip with cash flow. A lot of times when people are doing cash flow coaching, they make a really big mistake and they jump into the debtors first. So debtors are your customers, right? It's what your customer owes you. But guess what? By and large, when you are running a business, you have more control over who you pay and how quickly you pay them, right? Your creditors, than you ever do about how quickly you can get your customers to pay you. So oftentimes, one of the quickest ways to fix cash flow is to stretch your creditors. Now, it's not ideal and it's not perfect, but it's a surefire way because your client has complete control over when they pay people. The only time that would not be so is if you've got a major supplier that's dictating terms and requiring payments up front or on exact specified periods, and your client can't afford to breach those or to miss that stuff. But the whole point of this is that I could have easily jumped with my client way back up into this area and gone to forecasting and gone to what if, because everybody's cash flow tool does forecasting and they do what if. But remember when I said this before, that stuff is highly speculative. It's wonderful and it's a lot of fun for us to play around with the numbers, but guess what? It doesn't put more money in people's bank accounts. What does put more money in people's bank accounts is figuring out what should your client be doing today and tomorrow to put more money in their bank account. And to do that, you are solely concerned with cash flow. Let's figure out where the money is trapped. Let's figure out where the opportunities are in this business. One of the biggest opportunities with cash flow as well is profit, right? If somebody doesn't charge enough money for their services and they have no profit, they have no hope of having cash flow. The only way that you'd have cash flow in a low profit situation is if you are raising funds or if you are liquidating assets. So oftentimes profitability gets 100% overlooked by people when in fact it's one of the very first places that you should go when you're looking to help somebody. And one of the things I guess that differentiates Business from a lot of the other apps out there is we're the only one that coaches across all the aspects of business. So for example, when you click on show more, one of the things that's happening in this business is that their margins are up. So their total income is up 20% and all of their margins, their net profit margin is also up 40%. So if you were to see a situation where income was way up and margins were down, they would actually see some coaching and tips to point you in the right direction so that you can hold the hands of your clients and actually get this stuff. Now, please remember that if you need to help your clients, to get more customers or to put their prices up, these are things that you have to learn as a practitioner and master yourself before you can feel comfortable working in this area. But it's equally important to the business as just, cutting costs and doing forecasts. This stuff is about really growing the business because your client doesn't just want to kind of get by, right? They want to grow. And so we give some tips that give you, point you in the right direction. And have no fear. Your client isn't going to be able to figure this stuff out by themselves, right? They need you to hold their hand. It's more important for you in the context of you running your cash flow advisory practice to get paid for holding the hand of your client, for helping them to circumnavigate all the ups and downs of business, supporting them, holding them accountable, giving them a kick up the pants. That's the type of stuff that you want to get paid for in your advisory service, not selling the report. The dashboard and the report is just a diagnostic tool. It's about how do you work with the client to hold them accountable, to support them to actually get the result. There's a lot more potential and it's a lot more lucrative to get paid for that component than it is to simply produce a report and try to sell it to them. They're not going to see the value and they're not going to take action. If you go out and tell your clients, hey, you need to collect your debts, guess what? They don't know how. It's about, how do you help them to do that? And one of the things that Business does is it puts some systems and context around things that you can work on with them, templates and systems to put systems in place. One of the biggest drawbacks I see of a lot of cash flow apps is this. Everyone wants to focus on collecting debt from Bob and Susie, but that's actually not what's wrong with the business. The business isn't broken because they need to collect debt from Bob and Susie. The business is broken because the business doesn't have systems in place to prevent debt from becoming uncollectible every single month. That's where the value lies. That's what cash flow advisory really is. It's not about selling reports and dashboards. It's about fixing this stuff. So I'm just going to go back to my last slide because I'm wrapping up. I know I've probably packed a hell of a lot of content into this presentation, but I do it because I want you guys to be successful. I want you guys to do well. And to do well, you know, we've got to get you pricing the right stuff. So let's go back here. So if you want to know more, Tanya's going to send you out some links, and it's going to explain, you know, how I came to be coaching in this fashion. I use Shift, which is my own model. All of my pricing stuff, all of my cash flow stuff, it all comes back to this model, but I don't really have time to cover it in depth. So I just wanted to let you know that we're going to leave you with some resources. And I'm just going to give you some next steps, right? I wouldn't be coaching you if I didn't give you some homework. And you need to be giving your clients homework as well, right? You need to get them to take action, them to step up. So number one, what do you need to know, right? What additional skills are still left for you to develop? Do you have to learn by doing some reading and some research how to get leverage on your clients, how to become a better storyteller? Do you have your own mindset issues that you need to get over? Are you equipped to deal with stinking thinking and chronic poverty mindset? How's your pricing? How are you going to price this stuff? Are you comfortable with value-based pricing? And if you were going to create solutions, what would those solutions be? Are you going to sell reports, or are you going to sell the impact of you helping them achieve the result, right? Where's the leverage in that? Where's the big ticket items for you? What's your plan to reduce complexity? How are you going to make it easier for your clients to take action? Please, please, please stop teaching people accounting, right? I want you to start getting your point across and start learning how to master storytelling and pictures and emotions to get leverage on your clients. And the best thing you can do is like start today, right? Yesterday was the best time to do this, but you know, today is the second best time, right? So get started, start failing, start trying a few things. If you want to know how to contact me, again, Tanya will send you guys some links. I've written a few books on these things. All of my books are pretty accessible. They're easy to read because it's just storytelling. It's real client stories and me finding ways to help you teach your clients how to talk to them about the stuff that's really keeping them up at night. So I'll turn it back over now for questions. I'm sure there's probably going to be a few.
Okay, well, that was awesome, Rhonda. I made lots of notes in my head spinning, and good thing that this is recorded so I can watch this over and over again too, right? So just while we're just waiting for questions to come in, if everybody wants to, I tried to put in another poll, a quick poll. I don't know, didn't work. Technology is just not my friend today. So just type into the chat, just type in where you're from. And then that way I can grab that. I can get the printout of that, compare, and then that way we can make sure everybody gets their CE credits once it's approved.
I'm glad to see lots of people from Canada. So some of you may know that I grew up in Medicine Hat, was born and raised in Medicine Hat, and I did both of my degrees in law and accounting at the U of C. So I'm always excited to see lots of people from Alberta.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There's that. Yeah, there seems to be a lot more from Canada than from the States today, which is interesting. So Diane Mueller did pop a question in, and she says the most important word in cash flow is flow, not cash, right? And that was exactly what you were saying as well, too.
Yes, and it's a certainty. I mean, everybody wants to talk about forecasting, but what's the point? You know, a forecast may or may not happen, but cash flow happened. And cash flow for me is your point of power, because if you want to get your client to pay a premium price, you have to make an impact. And the only way you can make an impact for sure is to help them put more money in the bank account.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and it's funny when we sit there and take a look at, you know, just everything in general. You know, Leanne is the one that really talks, is because I can't get my head wrapped around, I guess, the way some clients, which this is really interesting. I love your way of doing it, seeing that in Financial Foreplay. I'm starting to think maybe I'm going to buy that and just give that out to as a gift to my clients as well, not just for myself, but for clients. If it would help with that, help them look at it differently. But the way that I look at it, you're right, is the money in the bank account, and do I have it to spend it? You know, and forecasting, you're right, it's just a guess. It's the magic 8 ball, I call it.
Yeah, I believe too much time and effort is spent on forecasting. And people don't pay money for forecasts. People pay money for that money. And it's a really important mental distinction for everybody to make, because at the end of the day, we want our clients to pay us the big bucks, right? You don't want to keep working by the hour or using fixed pricing. You want to value, you want to create value for your clients, and you want to capture it for your own firm, right? And to do that, you have to do what these people are really going to value.
Yep. Absolutely. So there is a question here, and I'm not sure exactly who this is to, but it's from Steve, and he just says, do you use any apps? So I'm not sure if that's just generally out to the panelists, it's just, or sorry, just to everybody, just to see what people are using. I know myself personally, we don't have anything that we're married to at all with this, and I think that, you know, one app might speak to me and might be better for one client. Another app might be better for a different client. You know, so we
Well,
don't.
and remember that a lot of the apps do the same thing. It's
Yeah,
really hard to distinguish. Like, a lot of the apps out there are really fantastic, but they are complex. And
yeah,
that's one thing that I would really caution against, because we may think that it looks beautiful, the graph or the dashboard. We may think that, it's very probative and all of that sort of thing. But to somebody who is a layperson, a lot of these people, they cut hair, they do electrical contracting, they, manage a store. They're not financial experts. So to them, it's complex. And so, I would be thinking about maybe use the app as a diagnostic tool for yourself, but use storytelling and other means to get your point across and to get leverage on people, right? Like,
yeah,
when you're doing it cash flow advisory, what you don't want to be doing is collecting the money for your clients. I see people making this mistake that, last month I saw someone bragging on Facebook about how they helped their client collect money. That's not helping. If you are going out and collecting money for your client and, focusing on stuff like that, you're not actually advising them. A better way to go about it would be to help them put systems in place so that they don't have to keep chasing stuff every single month, because it's just a
right.
Band-Aid, right? Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes.
Yep.
Your clients are bleeding profusely, and you've got to, take the bullet out and stitch it up, not
Yep.
stick a Band-Aid on it.
No, exactly. I mean, we've taught, podcasters to value price and, do pre-receivables, pull in advance out of their bank account. And he told me it would never happen. And that's all he does. He's got packages and he's a podcaster. He's Tanya, it'll never happen. And sure enough, we worked with them, and he's got, clients on all different levels of packages, and everybody, he gets paid up front out of their bank account automatically. So, it does work. And that's exactly, we advised him, showed him how to implemented, and that made a huge, huge difference because he now has no receivables. He doesn't send an invoice.
Yeah,
So,
and a lot of people shouldn't have receivables. This is one story for those of you that read Financial Foreplay. You'll get this and you'll laugh. I always tell the story of I worked with a lot of plumbers and electricians, and I always say to them this: when is the value of your service the greatest?
when they need it the most.
Yeah, before you do it, right? Like, if someone's toilet is plugged in the middle of the night, the value is greatest before you actually perform the service. So you should never, ever, ever leave someone's house without getting your money.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? Like, because what ends up happening is a lot of these plumbers and electricians, they go home and their wife is doing the books, and the wife has like 3 kids, and she's trying to fit it in and get the books done and do all this stuff. And she doesn't invoice the job for like 30 days.
Right.
And then they don't pay for like another 30 or 60 days. It's ludicrous, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Get the money.
Exactly. So now Steve has, I guess, a further follow-up. And
Yep.
so his question is, so you require a half an hour discussion when you deliver the monthly financials, and how do you get that? Because he finds he gets pushed into the compliance corner and doesn't get much discussion. So I'll just give my response on this, and then you can follow up with your thoughts on this, Rhondalynn, if that's okay. So
Sure.
I know with us, we have different conversations with clients. We have our clients that are compliant, but if they want that advisory part of it, they're paying extra for that. And yes, we book an hour appointment for them when we go through that. And that is a separate conversation than the compliance. They're paying more they're paying extra for that. So if they, compliance, we might deal with on little things. So if they've got, a compliance meeting and an advisory meeting once a month, we're booking 2 different ones and we're keeping them on track, because that's just the way that we found that it works best. We don't actually really have compliance meetings with many of them. I mean, we've got some of them that have, support, I guess, calls on that. But again, this part, the cash flow, this part of it, the advisory part of it, is absolutely a separate meeting that they're paying more for. So they know they're paying more for it. It's easier to keep them targeted to that discussion rather than falling back into compliance. So that's my thoughts on how we kind of deal with that here. What do you have to add to that, Rhondalynn?
So I'm going to throw a bit of a spanner into the works, and I'm going to say something really controversial.
Go ahead.
I want us as a collective in the profession to stop talking about compliance and advisory like they're 2 separate things. They never should have been. We should have always been doing this, right? Like, what ended up happening, like, probably everybody on this call is too young to remember, but in the 80s, what happened was that somebody created a newfangled thing called a desktop computer. And that really revolutionized and disrupted our entire industry, because the clients started wanting to own their own data and have it on the desktop in their office. Before that, they brought everything to us. There was no separation. And so now we've got this thing called compliance, and we've got this other thing that some people do once in a while called advisory. We have to stop thinking about them as 2 separate things, right? In order to do this properly, you have to have the discussion up front with people. And that discussion up front has to be a holistic look at their business and what's keeping them up at night. I long for the day when we start pricing things holistically, that the price is X, or, we give them the 3 different offers and they choose what's right for them. But that price of X includes the compliance stuff that they need to get done to meet legislative requirements, but all of the, solutions to their pain points as well, that they're not 2 separate things, that we do this one on Tuesday and that one on Thursday. We have to start thinking about it in a holistic sense. And we need to start talking to our clients up front about this stuff. You can't slip it in the back door. You don't start doing someone's bookkeeping and payroll and then just magically slip in some management reports and try to coach them on them. It doesn't work like that.
Okay. No, and I guess that makes sense, because when I actually think about it, the ones that we're having compliance meetings with, that's really right after them coming off of a training package and they're still learning, which, is very different than, I guess, 2 separate meetings when I actually think about it. But
yeah, I like to think of it as, let's make it 1 meeting. So whenever we talk to people, we're always talking holistically across the business, unless there's a major problem with payroll, or something needs to be cleaned up, or there's been an error or whatever, then you're going to focus on fixing that one thing. But to me, it's always about the value.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jennifer Baldick says she 100% agrees compliance advisory are the same. You can't provide one without the other. And then Shirley Mathers says her thoughts are to define a problem and then book time for a solution. Yeah, which I agree with that too. Find out what your client's problem is, and then absolutely book the time to try to help them solve that.
Yeah, and remember that you should never ever solve, and I talk about this in pricing value, you never ever solve the client's problem before they've committed to pay you.
Very, very good advice.
Because that's crazy, right? I talk about this. You've read chapter 1, Tanya. Yep. If somebody's thirsty, you don't give them a sip of water before you price the glass of water.
Right.
You want to build up the depth of the thirst, and then once they've committed to work with you towards finding the solution, then and only then do you solve the problem.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So then Diane,
we're too generous. We're too generous, right? We give too much stuff away.
I agree with that. We absolutely are. When I look at what I've been giving away for years and what I should be charging, yeah, absolutely. You're right. And every time I think, yep, I'm good now, I'm now charging appropriately, again, I find that I'm giving even more away on this other side that maybe I didn't realize. So we're constantly shifting here, constantly.
Yeah. Everybody needs an unreasonable friend to keep them accountable, right?
Absolutely. So Peter Collin just threw in that he totally agrees with you. This notion that advisory and compliance are separate is just ludicrous. And then Diane Mueller is actually just wondering if you have a partners program for your system. And I do believe if you go to busyness.com, if I'm correct, because I was on that earlier, there is that you can click to see the partners plans.
Yeah, like I guess the way that I approach it is a little bit different than everybody, right? Because everyone's got dashboards and forecasts and all that stuff, but we're the only app in the world that has our own learning management system. So I do it differently. When I price for the, accountants and bookkeepers, basically we have 2 different packages per month. And what we do is that we give you reports and dashboards that you can use to diagnose the pain with your clients. But then we also give you the learning behind it. So I created this, thing called Shift, which is a bunch of strategies and soft skills that I use to teach you how to become a better advisor. I teach you how to niche down properly and price your services properly and, diagnose cash flow and deal with stinking thinking. But every single month I deliver training to that. And so we've got videos, webinars, and quizzes. So I can make sure that you've actually digested the content properly and understood it. So I think of my partner program as not just being, well, here's your dashboards, go away, go crazy, have fun, sell them. To me, it's more about the training. It's about real live training. And some of the training packages, or the top one, does include me holding you accountable. So you get a coaching call with me, that's pretty much like what we just had today, where I'm one-on-one with you, answering your questions and saying, no, this is a better way to do it. And have you thought about this? Because we need to learn these skills. Where do we learn this stuff? Like, if you think about it, as accountants and bookkeepers, we're 100% focused on accuracy. And in fact, we get rewarded in our practices and when we're working in firms for accuracy. But to be a really good advisor, you have to be able to manage uncertainty. Now, if you think about it, accuracy and uncertainty are at opposite ends of a continuum, aren't they?
Yep, absolutely.
I believe that every single skill, these 25 skills that you need to master advisory, are the opposite of what you have already mastered to become a great accountant and bookkeeper. And that's the dilemma. We can't just jump into advisory and say, well, I'm now offering advisory and here's my value-based packages. Great. No one's going to pay you, because unless you're really good at making quick decisions and managing uncertainty and collaborating with your clients instead of controlling the crap out of the engagement, you're not gonna make it an advisor. You're not gonna succeed. So we have to retrain ourselves. And I'm about those soft skills. Like, really, at the end of it, does it really matter what dashboard you use? It's more important that you can work with people, that you can get them to take action. These skills, I could teach them to anyone. You're not born learning this stuff. I wrote an article for Accountex a couple of years ago that was, how do you rewire your brain to think like an advisor? Because neuroscience has actually proven that good advisors, their brains work differently than accountants.
Yep, that makes sense.
Right? An advisor uses both hemispheres of their brain simultaneously. Accountants don't. When we're in accounting mode, we're only using one side of our brain.
Yeah.
And so it's about how do we, master these skills, and how do we rewire things so that we can be better at advisory. Very few people invest time in that, but I actually think we should spend more time. This is a high touch profession, right? We're not in a transactional profession. We're not just pumping out compliance and, doing stuff by the hour anymore. This isn't transactional. This is a relationship business.
Right. All right. So we've gone a little bit over.
Yeah.
But I think you.
I just wanted to frame it up, right? I just wanted everybody to have a frame of reference before you start jumping in and looking at that app and this app and that app. Because at the end of the day, really, you could almost use any app. It's like the magic is in what you do with it.
Yeah.
And how you get paid, right?
Absolutely.
If you don't get that part right, it doesn't matter if you choose the best app or the worst app.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yep, you've got to know what to do with it.
Yeah. The magic is in the, how you hold the wand or the performer, not the tool.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for those who came and those who stayed late. And that's great.
Thank you for doing it. I really appreciate your time and that you guys have invested this in yourself. That's really important.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Rhondalynn. I know this is not a normal time of the day for you, so I very, very much appreciate this. Absolutely. So
I haven't woken up my 5-year-old, so that's a good
that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Exactly.
Okay, well,
it's a lot harder to coach when I've got somebody going mommy, mommy in the background.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you very much for everybody. Again, the emails will go out within 2 business days. You'll have those emails with all of the links to everything that Rhondalynn's provided as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then everybody else who's on here, I know Steve Erickson's just, please let him know of any other webinars. Just make sure that you've all signed up for the rest of the series, which is going to be at noon Eastern time, starting next week, every Monday for the general public. And if you go to my website, bookkeeperscorner.ca, all of the webinars are there, and then even sign up for to be notified of future ones, because this is the year I'm going to be trying to do, arrange a ton of them, so that way we can be giving a lot of value to everybody. Perfect. Okay.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will talk to you all soon.
Have a lovely day.
Thanks. Take care. Thanks again, Rhondalynn. Okay. Bye-bye.